at 101.9 FM. And we get into our roundtable discussion this morning. Of course, today we're talking, like I said, we're stepping into a conversation that is as human as it gets. We're talking about grief this morning. And grief is something that we all encounter at some point in life, whether it is through the loss of a loved one, the end of a relationship, or even the collapse of a business venture we've poured ourselves into. But here's the truth: no two people grieve the same way. For some, it is quiet and internal. For others, it is loud and shared. And yet, it's always deeply personal. Today, we're going to strip away the myths. We'll talk about what exactly grief is. And then, from a psychological perspective, actually, and most importantly, look at some practical and healthy ways to cope with that. Now, joining me over the phone lines is Joseph Apia. He is a psychology graduate from the University of Ghana. He's a mental health advocate. He's worked, he's done some things in mental health, stereotypes, prejudice, and all of that. And his passion is in using psychology to address social issues and promote emotional well-being through public education. Joseph, good morning. How are you? Hello? Hello, Joseph?
Hello, good morning.
Yeah, Joseph, you're welcome to the Business Breakfast on Z. Hello? Okay, so we lost. I think we lost Joseph right there. We'll try and reconnect him, and then we can continue the
Hello.
conversation. Yeah, Joseph, are you with us now?
Yeah. Yes.
Hello. All right. I think the network isn't too stable, and so we'll try and see how we can work on that. All right, Joseph.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, I can hear you. I think the network is not too stable. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. I can hear you loud and clear.
All right, great. Okay, so let's get into the conversation this morning. But thanks so much. You're welcome to the Business Breakfast on Z. We're talking about grief this morning and how to. We're trying to understand it and then learn how to handle it well, because this is something that cuts across every aspect of our life. Sometimes we lose somebody, you end up, getting certain results you're not expecting, and people end up in grief. I understand there are several types. I know there's acute grief, there's prolonged grief, and all of that. We'll try to understand exactly what all of that means. But how would you define grief in simple terms for our listeners this morning? Hello?
I can hear you.
Can you hear me, please?
Yes, loud and clear.
Did you get my question?
Come again, please.
I'm asking, how would you define grief in simple terms for our listeners?
All right. All right. Thank you very much. And a good morning to all our listeners, wherever you are watching, you are listening us from. My name is Joseph Apia, a graduate from University of Ghana, Psychology Department. And I'm very honored to be here this morning. All right. When we talk of grief, from a psychological perspective, grief is an emotion. So it's a natural, emotional, cognitive, and physical response to either losing someone or something deeply important to you. That's what grief is. So grief is more like a response. But this kind of response, it's emotional, it's cognitively, and it's physical, right? So all what I'm trying to say is that um, grief is just a response people have towards something, right? When you lose a loved one, when you hear bad news, that's what grief is. So that's what I would say grief is.
Mm. But what exactly is the difference between acute grief and prolonged grief? I know there are two types of it. And
Okay.
why is this distinction even important?
Okay. So thank you so much for the question. All right. So when we talk of acute grief, right? When we go through loss, when we lose a loved one or when we hear bad news or anything, I want you guys to understand that grief is a response. Now, the acute grief is the intense stage after a loss. So let's say you lose a loved one. The period, that intense stage after the loss is what we call the acute grief. For instance, I'm here and I get a phone call that I've lost a loved one. For the past 2 days or for 2 days, I'll go through what you call the acute grief. It's going to be very intense. I'll be crying, I'll be feeling empty, I'll be having trouble sleeping, I'll lose my appetite. That's the acute grief. So the acute grief is very intense, right? It's very, very intense. That's the acute grief. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you. I get that.
Yes. So the acute grief is the earlier stage of grief, and it's intense. And that's why you see the people, they find it difficult to sleep, they lose their appetite, they feel empty. That's the acute grief.
And how about prolonged grief?
Yes. So with the prolonged grief is sometimes called the complicated grief. So for that one, it goes beyond, as the word implies, prolonged. So it lasts much longer than acute grief. And with this one, it can last for a year. So it can go beyond months and even years. The person feels stuck, can't get back to their normal activities. If the person used to be very lively, you realize that now the person's behavior, the person's lifestyle has changed. So with this prolonged grief, this is where the person might seek psychological support, because it is now affecting a person's day-to-day life.
Okay.
That's what is called prolonged grief.
So what actually causes these types of grief? I mean, this acute grief, what causes that? And how about the prolonged one as well?
Okay. So one cause, of all acute grief is, when you lose someone, the loss of someone, or when you lose someone very significant to you. And now, when we talk of grief, we are all relating it to the loss of a loved one. It can be a loss of job or illness, right? So one cause of it is a loss of a loved one, something very significant in your life. That can be one cause of the acute grief, right? So all of us, let's assume we are here, then somebody gets the news that he or she, the loved one, is dead. The person can go into the acute grief, and we are saying that the acute grief is very intense. So for 3 days, 2 days, or even a week, the person will not have the appetite to eat. What is causing it? The loss of a loved one. That's one cause. Then also we can have changes, right? Major life transitions, sudden changes in our life, right? So let's say there's a natural disaster, right? There's a natural disaster, and we have to move, or we have to cope with the natural disaster. That can also cause an acute grief. Then for the prolonged grief, accidents, unexpected death. You see, due to the nature of this type of grief, it's much more severe than the acute grief. Because for the acute grief, once you receive the news that your loved one is dead, or you receive a bad news, you go into 3 days or some few days of intense grief. But for the prolonged grief, it goes beyond months. So one cause of it is unexpected death. We are there all of a sudden. You speak to a gentleman or a friend of yours, you spoke to him in the morning, then the next day you heard that he's dead. If care is not taken, the families or the friends of such person can go into a prolonged grief. So unexpected death, unexpected accident. You understand? And also, when you're losing multiple people at once, let's say, you are losing people, they are dying unexpectedly, all this can cause prolonged grief. Then one cause can be, when we go through grief, when there's no support. When you go through grief, right, there are people there to support you, to lean on, to talk to. But when you don't have the social support, when you don't have the people around to support you, it can lead to a prolonged grief, right? It can lead to a prolonged grief. So I think these are some of the causes of the types of grief.
Right. Thank you very much for breaking that down. Now, many people have heard about the 5 stages of grief. I'm sure you're familiar with that.
Yes.
Yeah, from Elizabeth Kubler-Ross.
Yes.
Can you explain what exactly is accurate about it and what has been misunderstood?
All right. Thank you very much. All right. So for the 5 stages of grief by Kubler-Ross, so she is a psychologist that propounded that explain the stages people go through when they lose a loved one or when they experience something traumatic, right? So they are in stages. Now, it's not, the stages are not sequential. They can happen in any order, right? So the first one is denial. The first stage of the 5 stages of grief, according to Kubler-Ross, is denial. So denial means that when we refuse to acknowledge the existence of the situation. For instance, I get a phone call that a loved one is dead. I can go through denial by saying, oh, no, this is not true.
It's not possible.
I just spoke to her yesterday. No. It's not true. So with denial, you are trying to avoid, or you don't acknowledge the issue. You are denying it. Oh, no. Sarah can't die. I just spoke to her yesterday. So you see, in the process of denial, people you try to speak to the person, you call the person, you text, oh, no, Sarah can't die. No. I spoke to her yesterday. So denial is your mind's way of protecting you from the shock. That's what we call denial. So when people go through grief, or when we hear an unexpected death or a disaster, we sometimes do denial.
All right.
And it's the mind's way of protecting us from the shock. So, mostly people keep expecting. So, for instance, if, let's say, you lose a loved one, you will be expecting him to come to you or to hear, get their phone call. That's denial. We deny. We refuse to acknowledge the presence of the situation. Then the next stage is anger. So when from the denial stage, then there's anger. Why did this happen? Why is this thing happening to me? You see, anger, we are sad, we are angry, we get upset. So we get angry with ourselves, with others, and even in our Ghanaian context, with God. God is not faithful. Oh God, why me? There are a whole lot of people. Why? You see, that's the next stage.
Right.
So after denial, according to Kubler-Ross, people experience anger. They feel upset with family members, themselves, and even God. Then the next stage is bargaining. So that's when people wish they could change certain choices or decisions they make. They bargain. Oh, sir, wow. If only she didn't listen. If only she had come to the shop. Oh, if only she didn't leave the house. Oh, if only, sir, wow. Oh, if only he didn't take this. That's bargaining. We try to bargain. Here we wish to change the past or make deals to reverse the loss of our loved one. So we bargain. Oh, sir, wow. You should have called me. You should have, you see. So that's the next stage, bargaining. Oh, if I had prayed harder, if I had seen this man of God, if I had done this thing wouldn't have happened. That stage is called bargaining.
Right.
Then the next one is depression. So when you are done with the bargaining, you go through a state of depression. Now, depression is intense sadness and hopelessness. So with that stage, you realize that the individuals, they begin to pull away from others. They feel empty, they lose appetite, they have trouble.
Hello?
Oh, come on, no, that's depression.
Hello?
Right? Then the last one is acceptance. They begin to accept the reality. Okay.
Hello? Hello? All right.
Find ways to live with it. So that's the Kubler-Ross stage.
Joseph, let's try. Network isn't helping, so we'll try and reconnect you. I hope that's fine. All right. So we'll try and reconnect Joseph, and then we can continue the conversation. But he's explained a lot of things so far, making us understand what exactly acute and prolonged grief is. And he says that grief is also not just about losing a loved one. It could be anything at all that can cause grief. So, for instance, if you lose a job, or you just basically if you lose something, right, or something happens to you that is very, very sad, that could actually lead to grief. And then he was talking about the 5 stages of grief, from denial through to from denial through to depression and all of that. So we'll continue the conversation very, very soon. Joseph will try and reconnect him, and then we can continue this conversation. Joseph, are you with us? Hello?
Hello.
Joseph, can you hear me?
I'm here.
All right. I hope that it helps now. Okay, so let's talk about the emotional, physical, and behavioral reactions. Now, of course, you've said that grief is a response to certain things that are happening around you or with people around you. And beyond sadness, what are some of the common emotional responses to grief that you can talk about? Like things like guilt, anger, anxiety, or what else?
All right. Thank you very much. So now I want my viewers to understand that, listeners at home, if you're listening to me, understand that grief is a response. You are responding to something in the environment, something that has happened to you or around you right now. The response, we have components of, so grief is more like an emotion. So there are components. So we have the emotional aspect, behavioral, and the physiological aspect. Now, when it comes to the emotional reaction, obviously sadness. There's going to be sadness and crying. The person will go through that. Anger. People do express anger, or yes, they get angry, either with themselves, with the world, or even God. They get angry. Then people too feel guilt. Right? There are some emotional reaction where the person, the individual, will feel guilt. Oh, I should have helped her more. I should have. Oh my God, it's my fault. It's all my fault. Why didn't I call her? That's guilt. Then anxiety to set in. Is it anxiety? Intense worry. That's anxiety. Intense worry and panic. And with the anxiety, they fear about the future. Oh my God. Oh, right now, what do I do? What do I do? That's anxiety. They are worried. There's intense. Then they have what you call numbness. Numb. They express what you call numb. And in this world, they go through disbelief. They still can't cope with the fact that the individual is gone. So these are some of the emotional reactions people experience when they are grieving. Sadness, anger, guilt, anxiety, numbness, and a whole lot.
Right.
However, there are some individuals that can experience multiple. An individual can experience sadness, anger, guilt at the same time.
I see.
At the same time. So you see, we are all different. We are all different individuals. Okay. How Kojo will react to a particular situation will be different from how Kwesi will react. We are all different. So the fact that you are not seeing that the person is not crying does not mean the person is not grieving.
Right. They might be expressing it in different ways.
Yes, everyone expresses grief in so many ways. All right, so that's the emotional reaction. Now, when it comes to the physical reaction, the physical here is what we see.
I'll come to the physical reaction shortly. So indeed, it's very important that we understand how people are, reacting to certain things around us. And I've had an experience with someone who lost a loved one. I didn't know. The person didn't mention it. But when the person came quite close, they started being very rude. Speaking to people in very harsh manner and all of that. I'm now getting to understand from what you're sharing that indeed it is sometimes their own way of expressing grief. Very interesting.
Yes. So you see, everyone is different, right? So yes, people have. I don't know if I'll be allowed to. We have something called defense mechanisms, right? Defense mechanism. So we have, when people go through grief, it depends on the intensity of the issue. Some people go through what you call reaction formation, projection, a whole lot. I'll explain it when there's more time. So that's the emotional reaction. Then for the physical reaction, it's what we normally see from the individuals, right? So you realize that the person's energy is down. The person has low energy. The person is tired. He's always tired. You know that Kojo is someone who is very active. When it comes to the work, when it comes to the office, when it comes to school, he's always active. But of late, recently, you realize that Kojo is always sleeping. He doesn't really have energy. This can be a sign that Kojo is grieving. He's experiencing grief. He's going through grief. Then one of the most obvious physical reaction is sleeping problems, right? So it's either the individual sleeps too much or the individual sleeps too little.
Oh, so
right?
not all sleeping is as a result of laziness.
No. you know, the body has been designed in a way that it's supposed to be balanced. Sleep, you are supposed to sleep, like everything is supposed to be balanced.
Right.
So if you realize that somebody is doing too much of something or too little, then there's going to be a problem.
Okay.
So what is contributing to Kojo sleeping too much? What is contributing to Amos sleeping too little? And grief can be a cause.
Right.
Grief. So these are the physical reactions. Then even one obvious reaction or symptom is change in appetite. Right. So here too is either the person loses appetite or the person eats more than usual.
Very interesting. Then I'll probably have to start expressing my own grief in that way, so that he can eat more. And then anyway, but that's just by the way. So very interesting things. So sleep issues and appetite changes. I see. So somebody can begin to eat more simply because they are grieving.
Yes.
Could that be the reason why sometimes, that's on a very lighter note, could that be the reason why people go for funerals and they eat a lot? Maybe that's their own way of expressing grief.
Well, everyone has their motive, well, everyone has their motive, but yes, everyone has their own motive.
Absolutely.
And I'm saying that it depends on how close you were with the person, or it depends on the significance of the issue.
Right.
The loss, the significance, right? So how Kojo, who is a family member to so and so who is dead, how Kojo will grieve will be different from how maybe a colleague or a classmate will grieve. However, I'm saying that because we are individuals, we have differences. Some people may not show it covert. Some people's grief might be covert. Covert means that you can't see it.
Okay.
You can't really see that they are grieving, but they are. And there are some people's own too that can be overt. You can easily see it. And I'm giving you signs that sleeping. Some even have headaches, body aches.
Right.
Some have discomfort in their stomach, and when it gets to the prolonged stage of grief, it can affect their immune system.
Okay.
So grief can affect your immune system.
That means that it can lead to illness.
Yes,
okay.
It can. It can affect your immune. If you want me to explain how it can,
I'll feel free. You can just go ahead.
Gladly do so.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So you see, when we grieve, right, we have what you call stress hormones in our body.
Yeah.
Right, stress hormones. So when you are grieving, your body is producing more stress hormones. Now, the more your body keeps producing these stress hormones for long, they begin to suppress your immune system. And when that happens, it reduces the production of antibodies. So it makes it hard for your body to fight off infection. So in short, what I'm trying to say is that the more you are grieving, the more you are thinking, Kojo, Sewa, your body produces a hormone called cortisol, cortisol. Now, once it keeps producing this hormone, it begins to affect your immune system. It suppresses it. Once it suppresses your immune system, you become vulnerable to a lot of infections.
Okay.
So that's how grief can affect your immune system.
I see. But would you say that, I want to also know, are memory lapses and the inability to concentrate. Also, some signs. I mean, that somebody is grieving.
Yes. Grief can affect our memory. Yeah, I understand. So, grief, as I said, is a response, right? So it will affect your brain and your attention system.
Right.
So, as I said, when you are experiencing grief, your body produces the stress hormone. Once it's doing that, it can interfere with we have a part of the brain called the hippocampus, which is responsible for memory formation and retrieving of our memories. So the hippocampus is responsible for that. Now, the more your body is producing this stress hormone, it interferes with your hippocampus. The hippocampus is more like the part of your brain that is responsible for forming and helping you retrieve your memories.
Yeah.
So that's what it does. It interferes with that. So it can cause memory loss or even foggy. What you have a foggy memory, right? Like you are forgetting. It causes that.
Oh, okay. Right. But how can grief affect our decision making and even productivity, especially for leaders and professionals?
That's a very, very good question. You see, so you see, when you go through grief, right? Let me take it from the cognitive aspect. When you talk of cognitive, we are talking to your mental processes. So it affects. So it changes how your brain process information.
Okay.
When you go through grief, one thing it does is that it will distort your reality. It changes how your brain interprets information. So, for instance, let's say I've lost a loved one, and my brain is processing it, and it will in the course of doing that, it can affect how I even interpret my reality. And doing so, decisions when I'm making decisions, it will interfere because there is going to be a cognitive overload. When I say cognitive overload, it means that the brain is busy processing the loss. So once it's busy processing the loss, it will not have the time. Your thinking would be slow. You find it very difficult to make sound decisions because you're.
Hello.
Oh, Joe. So whilst you're processing the loss, whilst your brain is doing that, it makes it. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yes. So.
Hello. All right. The network is in. Hello.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes.
Just that it keeps going on and off. So
yeah,
yeah.
Don't know what's wrong with my network here.
Okay, let's talk about some coping mechanisms as we try to wrap up. So, what are some of the things that people can do when they are going through, the grieving process? Hello. Yeah, can you hear me?
Hello.
Can you hear me, please?
Yes, loud and clear.
Yes, I'm asking that what are some of the things that people can do when they are going through the grieving process?
Hello.
All right, we'll try and reconnect Joseph, and then we can continue the conversation right here. Okay. All right. So Joseph has said a lot of things. He shared so many things, and we want. Some of the things he's spoken about. We now understand that. We now understand that grieving goes beyond just crying and all of that. Somebody can express their own grief by sleeping a lot. Yeah, other people too. There are times that they can't sleep, and so those are all ways that people express grief. You also talk about appetite changes. One of the ways that you can know that somebody is grieving is sometimes they eat too much or sometimes they can't even eat at all. So that's also something that we have to pay attention to. And it says that grieving affects our decision making, it affects our productivity, it affects our brain in several parts. And he mentioned the hippocampus, which is actually for learning. and memory. And so that's a part of the brain that functions in terms of memory and learning. So it helps you to be able to hippocampus helps you to be able to keep information. But then once you're grieving, it can affect your brain, and that affects you as well. Well, you can join a conversation. I'd love to hear from you. The number to call or text, send a WhatsApp to 0544321019, 0544321019, and we'd love to hear from you, and then I'll read your messages for you. We can as well call me on 0303956641, 0303956641. Call me and let me give you the opportunity to ask a question. Ask Joseph a question. All right. So those are a few of the things. He's very soon he's going to tell us how you can cope, because I believe that once you're going through it, there should be some ways by which you can cope or handle the grief in itself. And so he's going to share those with us very, very soon. Hello, Joseph.
Hello. Yes. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks so much for coming back. Yeah, so you spoke about a few things, but I was asking that what are some of the coping mechanisms that people can put in place when they are grieving?
All right. Thank you. So somebody may ask, what are coping mechanisms? All right. So coping mechanisms in the sense of psychology are just strategies, right, that people use to manage stress, manage emotional pain, or manage difficult situations. That's a coping mechanism. Can you please hear me?
I can hear you.
Yes. So a coping mechanism is a strategy that we use when we are facing grief or anything. Now, in psychology, we have a lot of coping mechanisms. So one of them is what you call the problem-focused coping mechanism. Right. So with this one, most people they deal with the source of the problem directly. Right. That's one way to cope with grief. One way is that.
Can you explain that?
Yeah. That's what I'm trying to do. So with this problem-focused coping, you are trying to deal with the problem directly. That's what it means. Please.
Can you give an example? So, for instance, if you lost a loved one, if you're doing problem-focused coping, is that how you call it?
Yes.
Yeah, problem-focused coping. How do you do that? The loved one is already gone. What do you do?
Okay, so with the problem focus, you see, when you lose a loved one, you are trying to deal with the parts of the situation that can actually be changed or managed. Now, since you can't reverse the loss of a loved one, you might focus on practical things to do, like arranging the funeral, like sorting out financial stuff for the funeral. Like you want to get busy. Like that's a problem-focused way of dealing with the loss of a loved one, because you can't reverse it. He or she is dead and gone. So one way we cope, we are saying that coping mechanisms are strategies that we do, and one way is to help deal with the problem. So the problem is there, so you are trying to deal with it. So maybe you want to help with the funeral arrangement, or you want to help investigate something. In doing so, the person is trying to cope with the grief. That's a problem-focused mechanism. I hope you get me.
Yes, I get you. What other ones are there?
Yes, then the next one we have is the emotion-focused coping.
Emotion-focused coping.
Yes, emotion-focused coping. So this one, you are trying to reduce the emotional disturbance you are experiencing, or you are trying to reduce the emotional distress that has been caused by the grief. So here's where you see people talking to their friends and families. They are going through spiritual exercises. That's when they realize the person goes to church. If the person is spiritual or religious, relaxation. These are all coping. These are all emotional focused coping. So you see, the person is trying to, there's an emotion disturbance. So the person is trying to cope with it by what? Reducing that emotional distress. So that's when you see the person speaking to people, friends, and etc. That's the emotional or the emotion-focused coping.
Okay.
Yes, then we have the avoidance or the escape. Right. So So this is one way which is more, I'll say it's more adaptive because it's not really, it has side effects. So here the person is trying to escape, right? Like you avoid thinking about, or you avoid facing the problem. So this is where most people engage in drugs. They drink alcohol. In doing so, they are trying to avoid it. They are trying to escape. That's why it's called escape coping or avoiding coping mechanism. They drink alcohol to escape. They engage in drugs. They take in drugs. Or this is where the individuals oversleep or they overeat. So they overeat or they oversleep. They are trying to avoid it.
So they try to do an activity that will take their minds away, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. They engage in activities to take their minds away. So this one, you see, one thing about this coping mechanism that it offers a temporary relief. So temporarily you will feel fine.
Okay.
But as time goes on, it's going to get worse.
So which one then would be the best one?
Which one is it? That's the question. So now there's no one size fits strategy for individuals because we are individuals. We are all different. All right.
Okay.
We are all different. However, their psychologists have come up with strategies that can help, which I said a problem focused coping and the rest. But I'm saying that there's no one size fits formula to deal with grief. Right. There's no one size fits formula to deal with grief.
So what might work for somebody might not work for the other.
Yes.
I see. So are there only three?
Oh, there are a lot. Well, I'm speaking from a psychological point
of view, right?
Of view, but let me see. Yes. So let me just say, you have to talk about your feelings, all right? Talk about your feelings, like share your talk about how are you feeling. Come out. Seek professional support. When you realize that you are going through the prolonged grieving, when you realize that say what or could you died 3 years ago or 2, but still you are still grieving, like it's still affecting you. You have to seek psychological support. There are a lot of psychologists around. You can go to the department. You can go to. There are a lot. Seek psychological support, counseling. And here in Ghana, we don't really pay attention to it. We all need counseling or therapy. It comes in so many ways. So seek psychological or therapy support. Then also, if you are spiritual, right, engage in spiritual or religious practices like prayer, meditation, going to church. All this helps. Then also, physical activities really help deal with grief. Right, exercise a whole lot. I mean, engage in physical activities.
Right.
Then also allow yourself to grieve. Accept all the emotions and allow yourself to grieve. In doing so, you will be able to deal with the coping, or you'll be able to deal with the grief in a more healthy way. Right. So these are some of the ways we can deal with grief.
Now, my last question to you will be, and it's a two-part question. I hope that you are able to address them very well. So, how can friends and colleagues, right, recognize when someone might need some help in terms of maybe they are grieving? How can friends and colleagues recognize that? And the second part of my question is that what are some of the things you can say to somebody? Because oftentimes what we do is that we tell the people, men soon, we just try to say all kinds of things. I don't know what are the right things to say to somebody grieving. So the two-part question. First of all, how do you recognize that this person is grieving? And then second part, what are some of the things you can say to the person to be able to, as it were, help them cope with their grief?
All right, I think you reserved the top one for the last minute. Okay. All right, so if I got your question correctly, how do you identify if someone is grieving, right?
Yeah, grieving, yes.
So we have what you call the behavioral signs, emotional signs, and the cognitive signs, right? Now, obviously, from the behavioral, when you realize that there's a change in a person's routine, or there's a change in if you are very close to the person, you realize that this person, there's a change in the person's appetite. Now, the appetite here can be either the person is eating too much, or is eating too less. So you know that Kojo or Kwame likes food. Whenever you guys go out, He's taking, he's eating, he's ordering 2 plates, 3 plates, or whatever. But of late, recently, he's not even eating at all. He's eating too little. That can be a sign. Or
but
if you realize that the person is eating too much, that can be a sign.
No, sorry, not to cut you, but how do you know that is grief? Because I know that there are a lot of other things that can be, a lot of factors that can come into play.
Good. So you see, I said that grief is a response to something.
Yeah.
So something must trigger that pattern. Something must trigger the person's sleep disturbance. And so when you look in a person's life, that's if you are close to the person, and you realize that, okay, maybe perhaps if the person has lost a loved one or something, and you realize that these are changes that occur, it can be a sign. However, let's say you don't really know. You don't know because there are a lot of factors that can affect your sleep disturbance and things.
Exactly.
Right? So one of the main ways is the emotional aspect. And with that one, it depends on how close the person was or the significance of the issue. So with this one, persistent sadness, you realize that the person, we have depression. That one is different from depression. We are talking about in terms of grief. We realize that there's a persistent sadness. Like a person is always sad. The person is always fearful. Right? This can be a sign that no, the person is grieving or
right.
is in that stage. Or you realize that the person keeps sharing memories with that person. The person who has lost his or her life. The person keeps on sharing memories.
Right.
Yeah. So the key is not just noticing the sign. What I want the viewers and the listeners to know is that it's not about you noticing the signs, but you responding with empathy. You see, here in Ghana, so for instance, let's say you realize that Sewa is grieving. You have noticed. What you do, it's not just about identifying, but you responding with empathy.
Okay.
Empathy means that you are listening without judgment. You are trying to offer support. So it's not just about noticing the signs. You have to show empathy to the person.
All right. Okay. So, Joseph, thank you very much. I don't know if you have any final words before we can go. Our time is up.
Final words. Before I say any final words, I would like to acknowledge a few individuals. So, I'd like to acknowledge God's servant, Pastor Adam Tabernacle of God's General Assembly, GGA. If you are listening, all the members of GGA, Brother Shikri, Brother Ben, all of you, may God bless you mightily. And Psychology Department, Unigaps, Dr. Johnny Andoata, all the lecturers there, they are doing a very phenomenal work. My mom and dad, I greet all of you and all viewers at home listening and watching. Final words is that, grief is a reaction, it's a response, right? And it's something that you don't have to work it alone. When you are going through grief, it's something that you don't have to work it. You don't have to experience it alone. The friends and your communities have an important role they play in helping individuals cope with the grief.
Right.
So I'm saying that it's not about identifying that this person is grieving. It's about showing empathy.
Okay.
All right. It's about showing empathy. And also grief has a way of affecting our immune system. So if you are experiencing grief, please try and seek support, right? And individuals should know what works for them. Me, for instance, if I experience grief, right, I go through denial. I'll deny the existence of it. So if I hear a lot, I'll deny. Then when I deny, I begin to do what you call displacement. Let's say, I'm giving an example. I put the grief, the anger on somebody else. So know what thing works for you and seek support. You understand? So in conclusion, grief is an emotional response or a psychological response to the loss of a loved one or something. And it's not just about you identifying the signs, but it's about you showing empathy. So community,
right.
friends, everybody has a role
to play
in doing that.
All right. Thank you very much, Joseph. Joseph, really, really grateful to you for your time and for your insights.
Thank you so much, and I really appreciate that.
All right. Okay, so that was Joseph Appiah. Joseph Appiah was my guest today. And he is a psychology enthusiast, and he's a mental health advocate as well. And he helped us have this conversation this morning, sharing insights on grief. And I've learned a lot of things. I hope you have too. And today, Joseph has shared not just his expertise, but he's also shared his heart with us. And it's reminded us that grief is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign that we've loved deeply, we've cared deeply, and been invested in something or someone beyond ourselves. And so to everyone listening, whether you are a CEO in your office, an entrepreneur on the move, a professional in traffic, or a young innovator chasing your dream, remember this: there's no right way to grieve. According to him, there is no one size fits all. And so you need to identify what exactly works for you, and then you pursue that. Of course, your journey is your own, and it's okay to take time when you need some.